Welcome back to a brand new episode of Mastering Programming. In today's episode, I'll be showing you how to use GeNIe to create a Bayesian network. Now, as you can see, I've got an example here of a Bayesian network that we need to create, and we're going to create it using GeNIe. In the last episode, I showed you how you can install GeNIe on a Mac. So if you are someone with a Mac and you're trying to download GeNIe, make sure you have a look at that and download it through there. If not, you can get started with us straight away, and we will be creating this exact Bayesian network with the percentages and everything using GeNIe. I'll also be showing you how you can convert it between the two different views so that you can get a mathematical output from it and get to see and observe the percentages visually. This is actually very useful, and it seems sometimes hard at the beginning, but it actually ends up being very easy, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, the first thing I will be doing is I'll actually just be reducing this diagram so that you can see. Now, hopefully you can still see all the numbers in the tables and things like that. And what I'll do is I'll come over here to GeNIe. Now I'm using the trial version, so it's going to say evaluation use only. So you don't actually need a live subscription for this. You can just use the trial version. And what I'll do is, to get started, what I usually like to do is actually just create the shape. No arrows, no numbers, no anything, just create the shape of the diagram that I'm trying to develop. So over here, you can see that we're starting with 1, and then 3 different chances, 3 different chances, 3 different chances, and then finally 3 at the end as well. So that's what I will try to create. So I'll keep this diagram here on the top right, and then what I'll do is I'll select one over here. Let's call this one A. So the reason I'm calling it A, and let me just make it a little bit bigger, is because over here you can see this little letter over here. It says A. It's better than just writing the whole description. So I'll name this one A, and I'll call this one C. Again, I'm just copying exactly what that diagram shows, and I'm trying to make it bigger so that we can all see. And let's just move it somewhere over here, like that. This one is D, and then this one is B. So if you have a look, if you pay attention with me here for a second, this is just me replicating that view that you can see in the diagram. So we're starting off with 1 and then 3. This is sort of similar. You've got 1 and then 3, and they're called exactly the same. You've got C, D, B, and then A is all the way at the top. Now what I'll do is I'll start by entering the number, but first making a little bit of a change. So I'll right click on A, I'll click on node properties, and I'll go to definition. Over here, what I'll do is, here they call it state 0 and state 1. Instead, I'll call it true and false. And the reason for that is because I just like to make sure it's standardized, or it's the same as how it is here in the tables that we have. So here it's T and F, or true and false. That's exactly what I'm doing here as well. Now I'll also start putting the percentage or the probability. So we can see, according to the table, I'm not calculating anything. According to this table, that for it to be true, it's 0.2 and false 0.8. So I'm going to come over here and I'll type in 0.2. And over here, you can see if I leave it at 0.5 and 0.2, I get an error here, or I get a warning saying that this doesn't add up to 1. Because we're dealing with percentages, both chances, if we only have 2 chances, they need to add up to 100% or 1. So that's why it's telling me, hey, there's an issue here. But if I change it to 0.8, you can see that now it's kind of happy with that. There we go. So I'll click OK. Now we can move and start writing this for each option, and we can do that. So what I'll do is I'll click on C, and for now I'm not actually going to be putting any values. All I'll be doing is I'll be saying T and F, and I'll leave it as it is. Same thing here, and I'll explain why in just a second. And finally this one. Let's continue with the first 3 first, and then we'll create the entire diagram. But for now, let's do the first 3. There we go. So now I've got these, and on the right side here, you can see on the table, if I just zoom in a little bit, you can see that for that failing LC, for that to happen, it depends on A and it depends on D. For B, it depends on D and it also depends on A. So if I start filling up B and C, even though the probability from A and D impacts them, we are going to start having some issues with GeNIe, and also be hard for us because we still didn't calculate the values for D, or we still didn't input that in. So what I do is I will actually start by filling in D first, and then we can go to C or B. So to do this, again, let's go over here and I'll click on this arrow and I'll click on A and I'll drag it to D like this. So now A is connected to D. So if I go ahead and double click on D, and let me just again reduce this a little bit and go to definition, now there is something else being shown to us. Now we've got this, which is A when A is true and when A is false. And this one, this column, it's when D. So let's have a look at the table here. It automatically picked up that there is changes on what impacts what. And if we have a look at the table here, we can see something. We can see when abnormal situation is true and D is also true, the chances are 0.3. So let's go ahead and fill that in. I'm gonna go over here, and here when we can tell when A is true and when D is also true, so when it's true and true, our chances are 0.3. Okay, now when it's true and false, my chances, or over here, when it's true and false, my chances are what? It is 0.1, just like that. Now, you might be wondering, well, what about this other row? Well, even though we're here, we're only given what happens if it's true and true and true and false, we can calculate that ourselves. Remember, it needs to add up to 1. So this column needs to add up to 1. So if we're given the first value, which is 0.3, then this one will just be 0.7. And how did I calculate that? I just did 1 minus 0.3, which led me to 0.7. Same exact scenario here. This is 0.1. We know that this column needs to add to 1. So 1 minus 0.1, let's go ahead and put 0.99. Oops, sorry. I'm pressing 0.9. There we go. And now we can tell that it adds up to each other. So I'm going to click OK. All right. Now from this point, I can choose to either go to C or B. And the reason for that is because both these options are actually ready. A and D are both filled up, and C and B depend on either of these two. So we can actually get started with that straight away. So what I'll do is I'll get my arrow, and let's start with B and drag it from A to B. I'll grab my arrow and I'll drag it from D to B, because remember, according to this, as you can see, B is impacted by A and D. There's two arrows from both of these pointing at it. So now if I go ahead and click on B and go to definition, it seems at the beginning a little bit more complicated, but you actually get it straight away. So here we've got all these situations that we need to fill up, and most of these are actually given to us over here. It's just in a different format, so we just need to fill it up. So here, for example, you can see when abnormal situation is true and when it's false, and then you will see what happens when that is false and that is true, and when this one's always true over here. So let's go ahead actually and start filling this up. So when abnormal situation is true, so we need to go back over here. So when this is true, and when D is true, so we're looking into this column now, because when A is true and when D is true. Now when B is also true, so now we're looking at this specific cell when it's true, true, and true. The result is, well, according to this, it's 0.65. So I'm going to put 0.65 over here. Okay. And let's just leave the bottom row empty for now. Now, what happens if A is true and D is false, but B is true? Well, let's have a look here. So when A is true, so when we're over here, and when D is false, when we're over here, but B is true, so we are over here. What is the result? It's given to us as 0.25. And again, I'm actually not calculating that. It's just given to us literally over here. Now let's move forward. When A is F, so now we're looking into this column, overall column. And when D is true, so over here, because D is true, A is false. And when B is true, so we're looking over here exactly, it is given to us as 0.15. And then finally, the last one, when everything is false, so false, false, true, because false, false, and true, it is 0.1. So I'm gonna go ahead and add it. Now let's make sure we do correct all of these. So just to show you, I will do 100 it is 1 minus 0.65, which is 0.35. There we go. 1 minus 0.25, what would that be? So let's go ahead and put it. This one will be 0.85. And this one is again 0.90 or 9. How did I calculate this? I just did 1 minus 0.65, 1 minus 0.25, 1 minus 0.15, and 1 minus 0.1, which provided me with these. So I'll click OK. There we go. So now this is complete. This is complete. We have C left. Let's do the exact same thing. I'm going to go ahead and drag this. I'll connect it from A to C. Let's do another one from D to C. Let's open it. Definition. And we're back exactly to almost the exact same scenario. Instead of B, it's for C. And I'm not sure if you can see it, so I'm just going to do this. So let's get started and fill it up. So remember, we're doing it for C. And if you have a look over here, we've got the values for C as well. So let's start when A is true, when D is true, when C is true. So let's go over here. So when A is true, when D is true, and when C is true, the result based on the table, it is 0.75. And again, that is given to us, just how I've been explaining, just over here, like this. Cool. So now when A is true and D is F, what are we getting? So when A is true and D is F and C is true, the result is 0.35, just like this. We'll keep moving forward, and we're doing it much quicker now because we know it. But when A is false and D is true, so let's have a look over here. So when A is false and D is true, we come over here and the answer is 0.2. That's it right there. And when A is false and D is false, so when A is false and D is false, the result is 0.05, like this. Now again, let's make sure we are accommodating for that scenario where C itself is F. So 1 minus 0.75, that will be 0.15. 0.35. 0.3. Oh, 0.25. It's been a long day. 1 minus 0.35. One minus 0.2, 0.8, and 1 minus 0.05. Oops, sorry. Oh no, what was it? Oh, it was 0.05. So this will be 0.95. There we go. And now we've got it all cleaned up. So I'll click OK. That is so far the relationship that we got between these. Now I'll show you something really cool. So remember over here, I showed you that we can get results, like see the actual percentages. It's a good point. Since we're doing this, this section is now its own. So what I want to do is I actually want to see if we have the correct percentages or not. So what I'll do is I'll right click and I'll click on, well, first of all, let's zoom in actually. And now that we're zoomed in, I'll right click and I'll click on view nodes as, and I'll select bar chart. And you can see that it looks like this. But the issue is here they are full, while here they're empty. So all you need to do is actually click on that very attractive lightning bolt over there, and it'll actually automatically fill it up for you. Now you can see that so far our values, we have 1585, 2080, 1486, 1684 are exactly matching with 20 and 80, 15 and 85, 14 and 86, and 16 and 84. So it's great. It looks exactly right. That's exactly what we want. Okay. I like to work with it as view node as icon. It just makes it easier. It gives me more space, but obviously you can change that whenever you want. And if you change any value, you still need to click this again because it doesn't update automatically, or at least for the version that I have. So now that we actually went through this and we gone over, I'm going to continue with the rest of the examples until we actually fill it up entirely. You can skip this entire part or put it on like 2 times the speed in order to just skip over it. But I'll keep it going at that normal speed in the video itself. So if someone wants to follow along, they can. Let's continue. So what I'll do is now I'll add the next 3. So we've got this one, and this is G. We've got another one over here, and this one is E. We've got another one right there, and this one is F. I'm going to increase the size just so that we have like a standard size. Like this. And you can see that we're starting to have the exact same shape as this. Now, again, which one should I start with from this point? Well, based on what we learned here, you always want to start with the one that has all its parents connected. And in that scenario, for us over here, E is the only one that has the parents, meaning where the arrow is going to it is already connected because D is finished. So let's start with that. First, let's right click node properties and change it from state 0 to true and from state 1 to false. And then we're going to grab an arrow and drag it from D to E. Now let's open this definition. Very easy, we've done that before. So when D is true and E is true, so when D is true and E is true, it is 0.4. That means this is 0.6. I'm just going to go much quicker now. When E is when D is false, but D is still true, it's 0.15. So let's go over here and write 0.15, which gives us 0.85. Like this. There we go. Great. So now we have this one done, and D is done, and C is done. That means we can actually move forward to G. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to drag an arrow, I'll point it from C to G, and I'll point it from E to G. We'll right click, we'll go definition. Let's change this to true, and let's change this to false, like this. Now, based on this table over here, we can see it. So it is simply when C is true and E is true and G is true, it is 0.3. So let's go over here. When C is true and E is true and G is true, it is 0.3. So I'm going to go ahead and add 0.3. This would naturally be 0.7. Over here, when C is true and E is F, G is 0.1. So let's go ahead over here and put 0.1. And here it is 0.9. Over here, C is F and E is T. So F and T. Over here, I'm going to put 0.2. So this will be 0.8. False, false, 0.1. Which means this will be 0.9. There we go. That is now done. Perfect. Now we have one left in that quarter, which is F. So I would connect it like that. And then does B connect to it? Let's have a look. So B also connects to F. So let's go ahead and select our arrows and go to F. Now I'm going to double click on F. We'll go over here. The first thing we do, as usual, change it like that. And I think you get the gist of it. But I'm going to continue doing it anyway, just in case. Let's zoom in on our table. So we've got when B is true and E is true and F is true when everything is true. So true, true, true. Our result is 0.25. This gives us 0.75. When it's true and F and true, so true, true, F, true. This is in brackets, so it's always true. It is 0.3. So that gives us 0.7. When it's false, true, and true, it is 0.25 again, which is 0.75. And when it's false, false, and true, the result is 0.15, or the change is 0.15, which means this should be 0.85. Great, and you can see how we're starting to do it much quicker. Like, we're already done that entire section. Let's just mark it up. Oops, sorry. Oh, why would it be white? Yeah, that entire section we finished, which is great. So now we've got these 3 left. So let's go ahead and do it. I don't know what I was thinking, I'm just doing that now. So we've got I, J, and H. Let's add 3 circles, just like we said we will. So I, J, and H, just like this. Let's go ahead and make it bigger, just to match the theme that we've had. Same thing over here, same thing over there. And I'll call this, let's call it I. Let's go over here and we're going to say true and we're going to say false. This one is I, J, this one is J. And again, same thing, you've got true and you've got false. I, J, and H. And this one is H. And see, it starts to get confusing at some point. Okay, perfect. Now, according to this, which one do you think we can start with? Well, in this scenario, we can actually start by either H or I. And the reason for that is because, but not J. And the reason for that is because H depends on something that's already full, which is F. And I depends on something that's already full, which is G. While J depends on both 2 things that are not full. So let's go ahead and actually get started. And I might just push this a little bit. I'm going to start with 9 straight away. And these 2 will be easy. I'm just going to drag it from J to I. I'll double click. I'll go to definition. Over here, when G is true and I is true, the answer is 0.35, which gives us 0.75. 65, sorry. When it's false and true, the answer is 0.1, which gives us 0.9. And that's actually it, because it's only 2 scenarios. Now here, same thing, let's go from F to H. So we're now looking at that one. And so if I double click and go over here, we've got this one, it's true, and this one is false. And we can see that when F is true and H is true, it's 0.5. So we're actually gonna leave this as it is, which means this one stays as it is, by the way. If F is false and H is true, the result is 0.05. This one just confused me a little bit because of how it's represented here, which means this one changes to 0.95. And we click OK. So now these are all done. The only thing left is to connect to J. So let's go from I to J and from H to J. Double click, come here, and we can use this table over here to judge it. So when I is true and H is true, true, the answer is 0.55, which means this is 0.45. If it's true, false, and true, so true, false, and true, it is 0.35, which means this one is 0.65. When it is false, true, so false, true, the answer is 0.45. I sound like a train, which means that this one is 0.55. And when it's all false, except for this one being true, it's 0.05. So it's 0.05, and that gives us 0.95. There we go. So now that entire section up to J is done. We've got K left, L, and M. So let's quickly do that. We're almost actually done. I'm going to need some space, so I might just move this all the way here, like this. And I'll just start zooming on to here. So we're now just doing those 3 left. So I'm gonna grab one of it from here. I'll place it over there, and I'm trying to replicate that shape that we're looking at. And we need one more here, and finally one more there. I'm going to select them all. Let's see if I can select them all. Can I make them bigger? Okay. This one was not. Let's move it. And it was something like this. So from J, we connect to K. So let's go ahead and do that. So from J to K, and from L to K, let's go ahead and change this, rename it to L. And we'll go to definitions. We'll make this true, this one false. Now this is an interesting one because it's fresh, it's not impacted by anything. And we have it here as 0.15 and here as 0.85. So I'll click OK. This one, let's rename it to K. And we're almost done. Took a bit of time, but we are actually almost done, believe it or not. And for K, we've got both of these impacting it. So this is the table. So when this is true and true and true, the answer is 0.75. I'm very excited to finish this, as you can tell. When it's true, false, true. So true, false, true, it's 0.25. Which means this is 0.75. That's funny. When it's false, true, and true. So when it's false, true, and true, it is also 0.25. And then when it's false, false, and true, the answer is 0.05. So let's swap this by 0.75, and this one will be 0.95. There we go. So now you've got everything connected. We have one more thing that we need to connect, which is M. So let's go ahead and do that. And we're gonna change this to M, and because it's only impacted by K, we get it like this. So if it is true and true, it is 0.85, which gives us 0.15. If it is false and true, we get a 0.01, which is 0.9. Sorry, which is 0.99. There we go. So now we've got this, and what I want to do is I want to show you. So this is almost exactly the shape. Like you can see that it does look the same, even though mine seems to be a little bit uglier. But if I right click over here and click view node as bar chart, you see that these are not full yet. If I go ahead and fill it up by clicking on the icon, you can see that it starts to fill up. And a good thing we can do is we can use this to compare the different results. And just quickly, from what I'm looking at least, it all seems identical, like it seems exactly the same. And let me just expand this a little bit. Maybe you're not actually seeing it as good as I am. But this is what the result is meant to look like. And then this is what we created. So it's like that. So I think it is very similar. I hope you did enjoy this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned a lot from it. Let me know in the comments if you need any more help about GeNIe specifically, or anything about probability. And also you can feel free to give me any feedback on this style of teaching anyways. Thanks so much, and I hope to see you in the next episode.